How to be alone after a breakup. My guess is that if you are here, you already logically understand the breakup. You're not confused about what happened. But what you are confused about and what you are struggling on is that when the day quiets down and when you get home and you're alone and you're isolated and you're by yourself, that's when things start to get heavy. That's when things start to get a little bit shaky and you're not sure what's going on. And the reason I can talk about this is that I have done a bunch of my own work. I've gone through my own heartbreak. I've helped others through their own heartbreak. And I've spent years studying how the nervous system reacts to relational loss. Somatic work, trauma-informed approaches, sitting with people who look completely functional on the outside, but fall apart the moment things start to slow down. And most of these people, you probably included, you understand how to think through things. You're probably very good at solving problems logically. And that is actually part of the problem. So what I want to give you here in this video isn't motivation, it isn't mindset. It's a way to understand what's actually happening when being alone after the breakup feels heavy. And the first thing I want to share with you is that being alone isn't hard because you're weak. Being alone feels hard because your system lost a reference point. And this is a moment that a lot of people can recognize. You finish work, you get home, you put your keys down, and nothing is wrong, right? But everything feels intense. Everything feels louder. And it's not that you suddenly became bad at being alone. Your nervous system just lost its primary anchor, right? For a long time, there was another person with you who helped regulate your day, whether you realize it or not, right? Morning texts, shared routines, small check-ins, even little fights and bits of conflict. All of these things told your body, I'm not doing this alone. And when that disappears, your body reads it as danger. It reads it as unsafety, not emotionally, but biologically, right? Within your somatic system. And so if you feel restless, if you feel on edge or oddly unsafe, doing nothing, being alone, that's not a failure. That's just your system trying to adjust to loss, trying to adjust to this new reality where there's not this being present that has felt so familiar for so long, and you had so many routines built around. And so if this is resonating with you, I would invite you to work deeper with me. There are some links below in the description where you can find all the information you need on how we can work together deeper. This is the type of work that I love to do. I love to take people from a place of dysregulation, of a place of feeling unsafe after a breakup, and move them into a place of safety, into a place of regulation. And when we can do that, your focus returns, your productivity returns, and those looping thoughts slowly start to die down. And so the second thing that I want to share with you about this is that your loss of routine, this oftentimes hits before the grief does. And so a lot of people miss this. A lot of people assume that they're struggling because they're sad, because they're grieving and they need to process this. And sometimes that can be true. But oftentimes what happens is that what hits first is this disorientation, right? You're eating at different times, you're sleeping at different times, you're sleeping maybe in a different bed, you're obviously sleeping without your partner anymore. And even weekends start to feel unstructured in a way that is hard to explain. Small changes in your routine already stress the nervous system. And so when you go through a breakup, this wipes out dozens of routines at once. And that's why you can feel fine, quote unquote fine, yet deeply unsettled physically, especially when you're alone, especially when you're by yourself, especially after a long day and you come back to what should be a normal routine and all of a sudden you find yourself alone at the kitchen counter. And so oftentimes your mind is saying okay, but your body, again, is saying something is wrong, something is different. I feel unsafe. And both of these things can be true, but what we're ultimately trying to do is to bring your body more in sync with your logical mind. Your logical mind that says that everything is okay and you understand the breakup. We want to bring the body that feels unsafe to that same place. And the third thing I want to share with you is that shame can make being alone feel unbearable. It is not necessarily the breakup itself, but when you get home or when you find yourself in these quiet moments, being alone isn't just quiet, right? It isn't just silence. There's oftentimes a voice that shows up when no one else is around, right? Your inner voice. You should be further along. You're the one that messed this up. This keeps happening because of you. And so the house isn't just empty. It's hostile. You have this hostile inner voice that are saying what can be violent things to you. And if that voice is left running unchecked, Of course you don't want to be alone. Right? Of course you don't want to be alone when there's this voice that comes out that is extremely loud in the quiet, silent times. So anyone would avoid that room. And so the key here isn't to silence the voice, it's changing your relationship to it. And that inner voice isn't evil. It's just an old coping strategy that is trying to keep you safe. And so when you stop fighting it and start negotiating with it, when you start changing your relationship to that voice, when you start doing the inner work to bring that voice up to speed on what you would like it to say, all of a sudden, being alone doesn't feel as heavy. It doesn't feel as loud. And the fourth thing I want to share with you about this is that you have to calm your body first, otherwise nothing else is going to stick. And so this is the mental model that changed a lot for me and changes a lot with the people that I work with, is that you can't think your way into safety. You have to feel it in your body first, right? This isn't a problem that you can solve with more thinking. So you have to feel it before the journaling, before the reflection, before working on yourself, right? Your nervous system needs proof that you are okay right now in this space, with your feet on the floor, with your back against the chair, right? Noticing the temperature, sound, pressure, hands on your chest, hands on your forehead, right? All of these things help you realize that your body is here. It doesn't have to be anything drastic. It doesn't have to be anything deep. Just enough to tell your body, I've got you. There's no emergency happening. Where we are is safe. And so these aren't solutions. These are just ways to help you feel a bit more stable. And without them, every coping tool becomes another form of avoidance. So we want to get out of this space of using things like the gym or work or dating to avoid what the breakup is stirring up inside of you. And we want to figure out ways, we want to use tools and techniques so that we can start telling our body that it is okay now. And when we can do that, then we can start to use things like the gym. We can start to use things like journaling. We can start to use things like meditation to help us further along our process. But it all starts in the body first, not the mind. And the fifth thing I want to share with you is being alone isn't a personality trait. It is a skill that you can cultivate. A lot of people think I should be better at this by now. Right? It's been a few weeks and they're already beating themselves up. But comfort with solitude is something that you build on. It's not something that you just accidentally discover. It's like a muscle. You have to work at it and you have to get comfortable with it. And so it's just like training for a marathon. You don't start at mile 20 and you don't start running a marathon right at the first go. Right? You slowly build yourself up until you get comfortable enough where you can run the full marathon. And so the first thing to do is to just start making the silence tolerable, then neutral, then eventually it becomes steady and you stop feeling like you need distraction. You stop feeling like being at home, being alone is like this unsafe, unavoidable, scary thing. And what happens then is that you start to relate to others as a choice. Right? It becomes a choice whether you go out and are social and you are looking to cultivate new relationships, whether romantic or platonic, but that comes from a place because you know that you are comfortable being alone. So it's not coming from a place of fear. And so that is the real turning point of when you start to realize that, oh, I'm good alone. I can be alone and I can enjoy my time with myself. But it comes from all of this work piling on top of each other. Right? And so if this is resonating with you, again, this is the work that I love to do with people. So if you find yourself in a breakup and you find yourself having these ruminating thoughts, you find yourself feeling like it doesn't feel good to be alone and you want help with that, I invite you to take a look in the description below. There are 2 links there for how we can work together deeper on this. And so the last thing I want to share with you before I end this video is if you don't understand how avoidance can disguise itself as productivity, as discipline, as self-improvement, then you will keep on using these different coping mechanisms instead of actually healing, instead of actually moving on. And so that's why so many people feel like they are doing everything right after a breakup, but yet they still feel stuck. And so in the video that I'll share here below, this is where I will talk about why action alone doesn't work if your nervous system doesn't feel safe. And it's one of the biggest pieces of advice I hear, which is you should just go to the gym. Just get back in the gym, and that will take care of your healing. So check out the video that I'm posting here. It's called Hitting the Gym Won't Fix Your Heartbreak. And in that video, I will start to share about all these different ways that we can use avoidance instead of actually healing. So thank you for your attention, and peace. I will see you in the next video.